Alright. Let's get into another Infinity Kingdom guide. In this one, it's gonna be a fan favorite. I've been asked repeatedly to make something free to play, to make something fire, and make something with Gilgamesh. So here it is, Fire with Gilgamesh. A quite excellent setup for the free to play player. Do be aware that fighting against water, you are gonna be at a disadvantage because water does still be quite fire quite handsomely. But the setup does work. If you get the right crits, if you get the right procs, you can beat players at superior strength. So if you're 100% free to play, and I mean 100%, like no Attila, no Merlins, no Charles, and whatever, then fire is your go-to element, and fire with Gilgamesh works quite well. So in this one we take advantage of Fire's innate ability to deal burst damage and pump quite insane damage, both both magic and physical damage in this case. We got Wu in the backline dealing magic damage, we got Gilgamesh in the backline dealing physical damage, and of course we have our front line with a bit of off DPS, some buffs, and some utility. Sort of you gotta embrace the beauty of fire, because it is gonna be quite RNG reliant. We're building to deal a crazy damage through critical hits and chase procs and stuff like that. And if you're unlucky on your critical hits, well, then it can feel quite underwhelming. You can run this in two separate versions. You can run it as what I call a YOLO build or an RNG build, where you actually run chase and hope to get those juicy crits, and a more conservative version with concentration that says, well, we're free to play, so we don't have VIP 13, we don't have enough crit. Let's go safe. But with either one of them, if you want to run fire and you want to run it well, you kind of have to embrace the fact that fire is and always will be a glass cannon-y setup. Like, you're gonna deal a ton of damage in a short time, or you're gonna win the fight, or you're gonna die horribly trying to hit your head into a brick wall. It can work very well, and it's especially strong against teams that rely on backline damage dealers and slower ramp ups. Okay, then how does it work? First of all, we're doing a pretty standard setup. As I said, we're gonna do two. The first one is a pretty standard conservative one. The next one is a full RNG. Let's go ham and count on getting some big crits. Count our luck. But both of them rely on sort of the same core principles. We've got William in the front with his 20% crit rate buff. William deals excellent damage, but really we need him for his crit buff. Make those juicy critical hits. This also lines up well with the fact that we are, as fire, we're scaling burst damage, we're using critical hits. Whether you run chase or not, you're still reliant on critical hits. Meaning that fire scales particularly well with the crit enhanced crit rate buff as well. So bear that in mind. Obviously, you'd like to have the VIP 13 giving you 9% base crit value, but you're not going to have that as a free to play. So let's not bother with that one for this one. Alright, so we know the lineup, and it's going to be the same for both type of setups, Wu, Gilgamesh, William, Hippolyta, and the Fire Dragon. But for passives, for the Tower of Knowledge passives, we want to maximize the amount of damage that we can output as quickly as possible. This means barely any defensive passives. For defense, you only kind of want two things. You want Malice and you want Oaken Guard or Resist, depending on what type of enemy you're fighting. In narrow cases, you can go for Blessing of Defense instead if you're up against a hybrid setup like the one we're sporting, right? Then you don't want either Oaken or Resist. You can either go both of them, or you can go Blessing of Defense instead in the last spot. But basically we're trying to do one of them. Like if you're fighting full-on water Merlin Dido, then you're obviously not gonna want Oaken Guard. You're gonna want Resist instead, because they're gonna be pumping Merlin damage. If you're up against nasty Alex, something like that, something physical based, you want Oaken Guard. Makes sense, right? Other than that, we run full on damage, almost full on damage, because we do have Fighting Master to ensure that our Gilgamesh is never interrupted and that his damage pressure, AoE pressure, is reliably upheld throughout the entire fight. You know, having the Gilgamesh to reduce everyone's troop count, dealing damage to everyone, means that you're flattening the enemy offense and defense capabilities and making those single woo crits decimate an enemy. So we don't want him interrupted, we want him to deal steady damage. We want Wu to deal burst damage. For this type of march, we want to get ahead in the fight as quickly as possible. This goes for any fire setup you're running, most setups in general. But we want to run William with energy suppression in combination with Hippolyta's energy reduction. This keeps a very nice damper on the enemy's energy bars and allowing us to be the first ones to cast our ultimate abilities. Hence, because we get our ultimates off before the enemy, we get that crit up before our enemy, we get those Gilgamesh hits, those single Empress Wu bursts out slightly ahead of our enemy. That means we're ahead in the troop count right off the bat, and that's what we're using. This momentum that we're building up in the first seconds of the fight is what fire uses to keep going. You know, that's what the entire thing works for. We want to get ahead on energy, we want to deal massive damage up front in the first part of the fight, and we want to, you know, compares well with synergizes well with the fire dragon as well, right? Getting massive burst right up front. Then we're using the troop count we're ahead on to sort of keep the ball rolling, keep our momentum going, and win the fight. If you're unable to keep the momentum going, if you're hitting a brick wall, if the enemy got too much sustain, you're done for. And that's just how it is being a fire guy. So another thing that counts into that is Fighting Will. It's the last skill that I'll spend any significant time on before just going through everything. But I do think that you should run this both because it does quite a bit of damage, and because you're fire and you're also taking damage rather quickly. And recall, we're momentum based, right? If we're gonna hit the percentage triggers for Fighting Will quite quickly. It's gonna be a short fight, and we're gonna use that to keep our momentum going. You know, every time we get a nudge down, we're just gonna turn it around on our enemies. Works very well into sort of the core concept of what it is running fire. Also, well, I mean, come in line with that, just having something with Fighting Will is going to be good later on when you've got into a couple seasons of KVK, SVS. You can actually get Storm Eye for free, which rolls nicely with Fighting Will. So let's get into the actual loadout. So first of all, we're gonna do the concentration one, the conservative version, where we're not relying on chase procs in order to win our fight. And in this one, we're running Empress Wu with concentration, annihilation, and toxic nova. We're running Gilgamesh with Death Breath, Anger, and Fighting Master. We're running William with Fighting Will, Energy Suppression, and Malice. And finally, Hippolyta is run with Weakness, Blessing of War, and either Oaken Guard or Blessing Resist. In very narrow cases, Blessing of Defense, like we talked about earlier. Right, that's the first one. The conservative setup, the one that's gonna always provide strong damage, solid damage. You do need the crits, but not as heavily as the second one. In the second one, we're swapping out concentration for chase. This is the only change we're doing. If you're really into it, you can also do you can do chase, annihilation, energy burst. But I do think that chase, annihilation, toxic nova is better as a free to play because your critical chance is going to be quite low, so you're not going to have the consistency to actually proc burst. But you can't get a few lucky crits and those big chase damage, worth a try. I have also seen people run Chase, Annihilation, Rage to quite great success. If you want that or not depends on whether you want that or not depends on your general crit chance. Like, are you up against Malice teams, and are you not? Are you actually able to secure crits without Rage? Then you should run Toxic Nova. If you're not able to crit without Rage, you can run that in order to get the chance at some massive chase hits. But other than that, the setup is the same. The only thing you're going to change up is Woo. Are you going to be more leaning into the steady stream of damage, or do you want massive RNG and nuke potential? And that's it for this guide on free-to-play Fire with Gilgamesh. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was what you were expecting. I know a lot of you've been asking for it. If you've got more questions, if there's something I missed or skipped, please do reach out. You can always find me in my comments or on Discord. As always, please do subscribe to the channel. I consistently release new content here on the IK channel and on the official IK Wiki website. Links are in the description. On these channels, you can find guides from everything in IK, from events to talents, passives, finished builds, and game mechanics. With that, I'm gonna leave you, and as always, thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.